Hello on YouTube and hello on Twitch. If there's anyone. Northstar here with another episode of my Singularity Let's Play. If you are well, my viewers are taking care of each other and being kind to yourselves. That admonition should not go to deaf ears. I really mean it. Kindness is incredibly important, and in this world, all we can do is look out for each other. We certainly don't have the ruling elites looking out for us who have hijacked the government and made it anything but a government of, by, and for the people. Let's be honest. This is not democracy. This is oligarchy dressed up as democracy and an empire dressed up as a republic. But such is life. I just wish that it wasn't going to kill me. And yes, it is this system because I'm disabled on COVID. And with the shittiness of the ruling class and them not caring about people, Social Security is going and fighting my Social Security disability, or rather the SSI, but it's still, disability in terms of having to get it approved for having disability claim. I'm clearly disabled. My energy is terrible. I can often only manage a couple hours activity in day before I get extremely loopy, start sounding drunk. There's no job on earth I can do like this. And sometimes that 2 hours of activity will involve 45 minutes of activity, an hour lying flat on my back, 45 minutes of activity, hour lying flat on my back, another 30 or 45 minutes of activity. You get the idea. It's not any kind of cadence that can work with any job on earth. But still, the Social Security Administration tries to claim I could adapt based on my age and education and experience, adapt to other work with my disability. That's a load of crap. They know it's a load of crap. They're going to force me to go before a administrative law judge, and then they'll probably still try and screw me, and they'll have to take it to appeals council, and I may have to do a new case with even more documentation. They're just trying to wait me out in the hopes that because I can't just start working or something, it's not possible, that I'll die, that I'll become homeless and die, and then they won't have to pay anything. This is a vile system. I'm sure some of you think it's an exaggeration. You'll never understand how evil the system is until you see it firsthand, though. But if you are a person who doesn't just filter everything through self interest, then perhaps you can believe me when I tell you this instead of requiring that. You may not fully believe it. You might take what I say with a grain of sand, but I'm not lying to you. And I'm not wrong. And while I don't operate on the genius level I did before long COVID, I'm still very knowledgeable and educated and smart and very, very well read on history. And that, more than anything else, shows this is not the type of society that Abraham Lincoln talked about a government of, by, and for the people for. This is not the kind of government or society that the Civil War is fought for. This is not the kind of society the American Revolution was fought for. It's a society that always serves the billionaires, which, if you listen to Tad Sturmer on YouTube, will say that that's the kind of society the founding fathers wanted to create. I think he goes a little too far with that. I think there was a segment of the founding fathers who wanted that, but to see them as a monolithic block is to go too far in the direction of pessimism and cynicism about the system. Some wanted such a system from the very beginning. Let's be clear, they were not all good men. Many weren't. George Washington was one of the worst, actually. And Ted Sturmer will do a great job of breaking any illusions you have about what kind of person George Washington was. Watch his YouTube channel. It's very good. He's a historian. And his area of specialty is the American Revolution in that era. Though also he's done stuff on resistance to Nazis during World War II. He's very knowledgeable about that too. Resistance to abuse of authority is the basic underlying theme, whether it was the British Crown or the Nazis. Okay, so let's hit the primary simulation here. It's time for a reset and to collect upgrades. And a viewer, probably a bot that is just trolling about and will try and weave something about pay for cheap viewers, whatever nonsense. But let's see what I've got for upgrade points though before I. Oh, yeah, this is excellent. Let's do it now. Or oh, I could fill the knowledge bar one more time. Okay, upgrade. Lots of idea upgrades. I'm not sure if there's many way of entropy, but I've been focusing on ideas because there's a lot more low-hanging fruit there. Uh, Still, let's not. Yeah, simulation speed and some metabit efficiency. But the most excellent stuff here, can grab that. Future civilization efficiency, modern efficiency, simulation speed boost, a whole bunch of simulation speed boosts, and idea efficiency. Boom. It's possible I should have grabbed ancestral ascension instead of what I did, but this will work. Can't open this just yet. Look forward to bringing you many more. Looks like it's supposed to be one a day, but the second one hasn't opened yet here. Should be opening soon. Huh. All right. Should at least be able to get as far as the cells and cell singularity, and probably further. Sponges, jellyfish, flatworms. Boom. That's a modest number of upgrades. I don't like that number. I don't know what heat speech thing that stands for. Pampered, and I'm glad you don't know. Anyways, there's some really vile people in the world who, rather than properly blaming the very rich for their problems, seek to blame people who are different than themselves, uh, who are different in factors of identity. All right, let's boom. Get a decent number of knowledge points and entropy stuff I'll need to advance at least through a bit of the ancient era, and I'll probably just uh, make it as far as modern civilization, probably all the way to Martian city. Neolithic, boom. Bronze Age, Iron Age. Just looking for when this increases to 5, 6, etc. When that number increases means it's new generator type available. I see. Yes, I did. And scientific revolution. Boom. Atomic age. Information age. Let's see if this makes me think vaguely of my Civilization 4 Let's Play series. We'll see if I ever get as far as the it's atomic age, and that it's a Greek archipelago map. You don't play Civilization 4, and maybe you have no idea the significance of anything I just said, but check it out and check that game out. You can get it very cheap. I think they actually gave it away for free Amazon Gaming for a while, though I already owned it. An older game, and it's a goodie. Newest games aren't always the best games. People are too often focused on the newest, shiniest thing. Sometimes older games are better than newer games, or if they're worse, they're not enough worse to. I mean, the newer games are enough better to justify their much higher price. Where studios have gone wise, people buying this, and sometimes they refuse to lower the prices in very old games, which is incredibly wrong. It's just taking advantage that they have near monopolies and stuff, and that copyright laws are insane in the US, throughout the West broadly, but especially in the United States, they last way too long. Things should leave copyright, and others should be able to make them much, much sooner. Same with patents. It's part of course, the capitalist system, because very rich people end up owning the companies that own the rights to all sorts of intellectual property. And they just want to sit and collect paychecks for owning stocks and bonds in these companies without actually doing any work themselves. Unearned income is the crux of what capitalism is really about. Whereas socialism is about worker controlled businesses. So, workers' cooperatives, which is market socialism, if that's all you do, or centrally planned economics like the Soviet Union did, which actually achieved very high long term GDP per capita growth rates. So it wasn't the economic failure that people like to claim who don't know their history. Anyways, but if you think that's going too far, market socialism is for you. It's very similar to our society today, except that instead of these large corporations owned by shareholders, you have workers' cooperatives, which are very similar to small businesses, except instead of there being a business owner, it's the workers at the business who collectively own the business and elect usually a manager who acts much like the business owner in making key decisions, but with a set of rules, sometimes phrased as corporate constitution, that limit what can be done, and that the most important decisions have to be put up to a vote. And it works. Workers' cooperatives slightly outperform traditional capitalist businesses of comparable size. They tend to be smaller, and smaller businesses do tend to go under more often than larger ones, but they go under at lower rates and achieve higher productivity per worker than capitalist small businesses. And there's many social benefits to small as opposed to larger businesses. If you want larger companies, well, stuff like the Mondragon Corporation can achieve. Mondragon is a network of workers' cooperatives that achieves many of the economies of scale of large businesses, while still being workers' cooperatives. And if you want to go really, really big, well, then you got to go to centrally planned, state-owned enterprises. But you can run an economy of small and medium businesses. You don't really need these giants. There's benefits in terms of doing things cheaper with it, but if it leads to the creation of billionaires that destroy society, or if you're not willing to have state-owned enterprises around, then entire economy based on workers' cooperatives is doable and will work pretty well and lead to much higher wages, and there'll be no billionaires buying out politicians. Therefore, the government will actually represent the people. So there are benefits to democracy. It's not just about the economy and wages. It's having a healthy democracy instead of, a handful of rich people owning the politicians. Whether you're on the right and you get all angry about George Soros, he's not the person people on the right should be annoyed about. They should be annoyed about the billionaire who lives in Shanghai who funds the Party for Socialism Liberation, maybe. Or, on the left and you're angry about Elon Musk and such. The fact is, billionaires destroy democracy. It's too much power in the hands of too few people. So, even if you consider it a excess of success of capitalism, which it isn't, because again, socialist economies actually achieve higher GDP per capita growth rates, so they actually are more productive than capitalism, not less. But even if you rejected that fact, there is the unquestionable fact that billionaires undermine democracy. Um, that's only 23. That's not even worth clicking on. All right. Now, socialist communism may not be the fastest possible economic growth rates, but for instance, the Soviet Union's long-term GDP per capita growth rate was throughout its history after World War II always in the top three economies of the world. So it was exceeded various times by Japan. People work insanely long hours, although nowadays Americans actually work, I think, more hours than Japanese people I saw somewhere, which didn't used to be the case, but America's system is collapsing. Um, but yeah, the working conditions are much worse in Japan, even if the hours are a little shorter. And there's a lot of extracurricular activities that aren't considered working hours, but are. So in terms of real time put into work, it's worse in Japan than the US, even now. Um, like having to go drinking with your boss after work, it being an expectation of the job. I kid you not. That's the thing in Japan and the corporate culture there. So yeah, Japan exceeded the Soviet long-term GDP per capita growth rate, and France for a while until the French economy bottomed out with Richard Nixon tearing up the Bretton Woods global banking system that France had very, very tightly tied its economic growth to. So the destruction of this system, which the U.S. should have had no right to do unilaterally, since it was created by an international conference at the end of World War II between the UK, US, and Soviet Union, though the French were also represented a little bit in a minor capacity. Um, and so it should have required all those countries meeting together to get rid of the global banking system. But Richard Nixon just ignored international law and unilaterally tore up the system and destroyed the French economy. And they went from the so-called glorious 30 years, I think is what they call it, 30 years of very fast economic growth after World War II from 1945 to 75 to the, what they call it, the 30 dismal years or something, 30 years of economic stagnation from 75 to about 2005. And then their economy picked up a little after that. No, not really until after the recovery from the 2008 crash. The French economy has started to grow at modest, but still bad rates again after 30 years of practically no growth. Um, very, very low growth rates. Anyways, 17 minutes, 49 seconds. Nobody writing anything in the chat. It's a lurker or it's a bot. It's more like a bot, given the stupid by viewers comments I see. I literally see that nonsense practically every day on Twitch. I wouldn't be surprised if Twitch is getting kickbacks from these people and intentionally suppressing small channels in hopes of exploiting people more. But, you know, capitalism knows no bounds to its greed. I have viewers on YouTube either way. So, folks on YouTube, you can check me out on Twitch, by the way. You can see stuff first since there's a backlog between when I create a video, when I'm done editing it and uploading it to YouTube. And then I usually have a buffer, so even when something's up, it might not actually be viewable for months. You can see stuff first and immediately on Twitch. Check it out, Northstar 1989. Same username as, I'll do the entropy bar one more time. Maybe idea bar as well. Yeah, same username as on YouTube, so easy to find me there. Once upon a time, I was also on Reddit with that username, but then Reddit frickin' banned me after there was someone who was going around swearing at everyone. I called them a troll, and rather than, and I got a moderator start swearing at me for calling this person a troll because he had mixed me up with somebody who was replying, who the troll had been arguing with, who was apparently saying really bad things, but I had no idea. I just saw someone writing swears in the Reddit sub, and I'm like, troll. It was specifically trolling over the Russia Ukraine thing. This person was, I call them neo-troll because it was pretty obvious from their behavior that they were someone who was just trolling anyone who called into question the necessity of supporting Ukraine with unlimited funding and never trying to reach a peace agreement to avoid a forever war. because really this is just a proxy war to wear on Russia. Russia's not good guys. I mean, the Soviet Union is gone and Putin is an evil bastard, but that does not mean that a forever war is in the interest of anyone except the billionaire class. But anyways, Reddit banned me for harassment based, even though I wasn't swearing anyone, I wasn't calling people names. I was literally just said, "You're a NATO troll." This guy was swearing at people, and then to the moderator starts me, he said, "You're mixing my behavior up with this other guy." And then when he just silenced me, even though I was able to prove that I didn't say this, he said, because the sub was being taken over by right wingers. It was actually a sub about the Middle East that was being taken over by right wingers at the time. And I tried to report to other moderators this moderators' bad behavior. Then they did that. Reddit, but Reddit is very much in the bed with censorship and right-wing takeovers of everything nowadays, which is ironic given their far-left origins. They start off as an anarcho-socialist community, and now they're solidly in bed with the defense industry and imperialism, which will happen to everything under capitalism. Eventually, it gets taken over by billionaires. So you can't find me on Reddit because of the. I even tried to peel that, and they just never replied. If I was in the EU, I would have had the right to arbitration. I definitely would have won it because they had no basis. But in the US, you don't have as many rights as in the European Union. The EU is a good thing, which is why billionaires are trying so hard to tear it up and using racism to get people to support tearing it up. Racism that supposedly, immigration from the Middle East is due to the EU. And unfortunately, it's working. Far-right movements are taking over all across Europe. It's the tried and true game of billionaires. Point the finger at someone else other than them, and a lot of fools will buy into this crap, and enough that you can get far-right movements in power. They will always ally themselves with the billionaires. They're not against them, no matter what they say about being populist or pushing back against supposed left-wing billionaires. The right-wing movements are always in bed with them. This has been true forever. Heck, the Nazis, yes, keeps coming back to them. The Nazis were funded by German billionaires from the very beginning. So, yeah, never believe what the far right says. They're always liars. Heck, even the name of the Nazi party was a lie. They were not socialist. That's a load of nonsense. They did not believe in worker control of the means of production. They allied with the billionaires. None of that is socialist. You might consider them to be social democratic, ironically, in a way, but that's only a condemnation of social democracy, which is, again, not socialism. Social democracy is an unstable system that will always, in the end, be destroyed by the very rich. At its best, you get, the Nordic democracies of Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland. But more often, you get something like the Weimar Republic that actually allied with the early proto-Nazis, employed far-right death squads to murder their political opponents, such as most famously Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, were taken out in the night and shot by far-right death squads under the employ of the Social Democratic Party of Germany. Right there in the name, Social Democratic. They were Social Democrats, and they allied with basically, Hitler wasn't really that much a force yet, but the people who would form the core of his party once he came into prominence. Social Democrats are not always friends of the working class, despite claiming to be. And that was an example of not being, even when they are, like in the Nordic democracies. I have few doubts Nordic democracies actually do care about ordinary people. Even when they are, it's an unstable system that will eventually be destroyed by the very rich, like it's happening right now in Sweden, with billionaires in Sweden working to undo social democracy and turn into just another neoliberal capitalist regime. Neoliberal meaning small government, low social spending, like the United States. They're trying to make Sweden like the US, which should chill to the bone anyone who actually realizes just how terrible the US is and how much better a system Sweden has. Uh, and the fact the US would be even more evil if there weren't social democracies like Sweden around. It's only going to get worse if the billionaires succeed in destroying social democracy in the Nordic countries, and they will. If those countries don't embrace Marxism, if they continue to pretend that you can tame capitalism and continue to suppress the Marxist parties in their countries, then eventually their social democracy will be undone by the billionaire class. And then the world will get worse. The US will get even more evil than it is because there will be no prospect, however slim, of, say, the Nordic democracies opening their doors to refugees in the United States, which is probably not going to happen. I wish it would because I would like to get the heck out of the US. And things are not too far gone in the Nordic democracies. I could, after becoming a citizen and learning to speak the language very fluently, absorbing as much of culture as I can, because I am very much a fan of cultural assimilation. I believe if you move a country, you should try and assimilate it. It doesn't have to be quickly, but you should make a commitment to eventually getting it done. There's value for certain cultural diversity, but it ultimately becomes too much of a tool for the far right. So I think out of social responsibility to not give the Nazis, not give the far right fuel to agitate against immigrants, people should, if for no other reason than that, in today's day and age, at least try and absorb into the culture over time.